You're good. All right, thanks, Brett. All right, so I'm going to call the Sherwood Solid Waste Community Enhancement Program Advisory Committee meeting to order. For those of you that may be watching or watching this recording, this meeting is not about enhancing solid waste. First time I saw it, that's what I thought. I was like, what in the world are we doing here? But no, this is, for those that don't know, Metro through the garbage fees sets up a fund that gets distributed back to communities so we can offer communities. This is the second time we're going through it this year because the first cycle we only got two applications. We still have $59,000 roughly that we could allocate. So we asked the community to come back for a second round of grant applications. So we're here tonight to talk about these applications. With that, I will. David, are you taking the lead on this tonight?
Yeah, first I'll start off with the roll call.
Okay, thank you.
Committee co-chair Mays, he is actually absent. Committee co-chair Rosenthal is here.
Present.
Committee member Rosner.
Here.
Committee member Young.
Here.
Committee member Browse.
Here.
Committee member Scott.
Present.
Committee member Giles.
Here.
And then with that is the approval of the, we need to approve get a motion to approve the April.
Yeah, and I was just working for Keith here, but technically you're the co-chair here. If you want to take the lead on that, or
I guess I didn't have the agenda in front of me right here. Okay. As co-chair, I'll move that we approve, approve the minutes of the last meeting?
The last meeting is
The April 19th meeting.
Second. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
No? Okay.
awesome.
And with that, yeah, we're here to discuss. I know this is the second round of applications, because as Mr. Rosner explained, we only received 2 the first round, and this time we received 9 applications for a total of just a little over $138,000, and we have roughly about $59,000 to award to these applicants. You know, one thing when Leslie, my county supervisor, she sent out an email, I would advise maybe withholding a few $1,000s, but it's totally up to the committee, just in case that money doesn't come in as expected from Metro, because we have seen a decline over the years, and we want to leave this fund short, but that is totally up to the committee. And with that, I turn it over for any kind of discussions. There's, you know, typically not everyone returns, you know, their scoring or the award amount, but out of the seven committee members, only 2 didn't return the scores. You see the average award amount to the far right for a little over $56,000. I could blow this up.
Oh, yes,
Council.
please.
Yeah, sorry.
I was gonna get up too.
What's the
Scroll to-
balance between fitting on the screen and
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so with that, it's kind of coming up with how much would you folks like to award? I know there's some differences in what different committee members have suggested.
Maybe we should start by just penciling in the places where there's alignment. Then we can talk about the difficult stuff. Like we all agreed on the van.
Yeah.
The bottom one, I didn't, but I'm willing to agree on that one. Change my vote there to be in alignment with everyone else. So if we add those 2, that takes up 30,000 almost half the money. Sorry, I'm not trying to take over. I'm just trying to be efficient.
Yeah, it comes
Wait, my
just shy of
brain
$49,000.
well, let's just make sure see where Taylor's at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, no. So, and by the way, I thought we were going to be, for some reason, I must have misread it. I thought we were allotting it in the.
And I know you're kind of, this is kind of
But,
really your first go around.
That's right. So, but in reading them, those 2 were actually the ones that I thought best about because of, so I'm in alignment with those as well. So, and then, oh, there's the school to farm one. I don't know, I'm a big believer in that, but I wasn't going to fund it all, but
Where's that line on it?
Yeah, that one. So
Oh, no.
I would put myself in alignment with Council Browse maybe. But I was thinking about a $5,000 one on that, but
The only reason why I hadn't on that one is because I think this is their 5th year, and I don't know that this was ever intended to be a program that funded things forever.
Yeah.
We've had, I recall the conversations we've had about this the last several years, and I certainly wouldn't, it seemed like there was a lot of agreement a year ago that that would be the final year, but obviously everyone's welcome to disagree.
Having a conversation with them about this grant during COVID, the program declined and they wrote the grant to establish the program.
I
They got
wasn't,
money that year during COVID too, and weren't able to do the program.
Did they get it back?
No, they said that they pivoted to doing virtual stuff. I don't,
So Renee, in your conversations about that, it's like COVID establishing this COVID was it for all of this. Do they understand that you that this isn't a permanent funding?
I wasn't talking as a counselor in that particular conversation, so
Oh, I was just curious if you had what their thoughts on long
I
term.
didn't bring that
Okay.
up. They were just explaining the nature of the program and why they were writing the grant.
so my only other confusion on line 12, that's for a church, right? I mean,
It's the old hall,
but it's the food pantry, open to the
It's
full
a-
public.
oh, is it? Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
and they use it for other things besides the food pantry.
Is that where they do their Sunday dinners out of that same hall?
They used to, they don't.
Oh, okay.
Rotary does serves food to homeless.
Okay.
Those who need there, there's a lot of different groups that use it.
Okay, all right. Because I was like, oh, why
Yeah.
didn't the church pick up the bill for that?
Yeah.
Let's see.
I mean, well, go ahead, Taylor, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I mean, and I'm always in favor of the art murals, but I don't know how much I'd be willing to spend on that. Let's split the difference there and say 10.
Well, they said 14,600 to do 2 murals or 6,000 to do 1.
Oh,
So we don't even have the locations picked out yet.
Right, which is why I said 1.
That's why I said one.
yeah,
I'm
okay, I'll
going to
say
change
1.
it down to 1.
All
You're
right,
gonna change yours.
I'm going to go down to 1.
I mean, there's a couple potential spots, but nothing's been
Right.
secured.
About you, Tim?
I have a question on line 14, school to agriculture. I noticed the average award score is 1745. They identified 52 as the minimum requested.
That's
Would
wrong.
1745?
It's just the average of all of the.
It's just the average of the ratings, but
no, yeah, so at this point, we're not even going to be funding that, right?
Yeah, 1,700 wouldn't
it
get
wouldn't,
them
it wouldn't do them any.
Well, I mean, okay, I'll also say there are other sources of funding besides us, right? There's parent groups and all the other stuff, right? So it would get them partially there, right?
Yeah, beats a poke in the eye with a sharp stick.
Right.
But I don't know if we
But I don't know,
determine.
but the way that we've put these out, to your point, Mr. Rosenthal, the way that we put these out to them, is saying identifying what you want and identifying the minimum you need. So if we give less than the minimum,
Yeah.
like
that's-
they've said the minimum, that's the
They've said-
minimum. If we go
they've
less
said-
than that, it's, we don't know, could be worth nothing, because they
Yeah,
can't.
that's true, that's
do
true.
anything. So it
Yeah.
feels to me like we don't hit at least the minimum, it has to be
And then
zero.
you have 4 out of 6 that said 0.
Zero.
What is the total if we added up all the, excluding the lift, which has been eliminated, but if we added up the minimum requests for all of them, what does that total up to be? I mean, I think I did a quick total and it totaled
Look
up
at
to be
this.
64,815 or something like that, right?
55.
55,482. $55,482.
Yeah, but some of those don't have oh, okay, wait.
Well,
Yeah, so I'm taking the full amount if they don't have the
Minimum,
minimum.
minimum or something.
Yeah.
Oh,
Did you take?
Oh, you forgot the Pearl Room.
No, he's selected it.
It's there.
It's on there.
It is?
Yeah, it just isn't
Oh,
highlighted.
okay.
because it was
But you didn't
selected.
include.
But that's
Oh,
really
you didn't
important.
include, the lift, we already could.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to
exclude the
know.
lift. The Pearl Room is included in your 55?
Yeah,
Okay.
So just a note for, especially for people listening, it's not that we're ignoring that it's the Heritage Center, it's that the Heritage Center is actually a city building, so staff is working with them to solve for that ADU problem there, so you don't necessarily have to expend money out of this to solve that problem.
We also can't, I mean, that would eat the budget up entirely by itself.
Exactly.
And still wouldn't be enough.
And I talked to him.
So we're at 59, including.
55,
55.
55, 40. Right here.
yeah, so what we're doing is we're including these lines and then these highlighted,
Okay, yeah, the first. total
gets you the
didn't have
5542.
the Washington County in there, that's why.
I mean, you all knows which projects are most valuable to the community. You know a lot more about this than I do, but one way to go about it is to say, well, you take the minimum and then we have potentially another $4,000. Where's the best place to apply it?
Well, or maybe even.
But also some of the things don't even have majority support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
So we all agree on these two highlighted amounts.
Right.
Well, so.
Then there's
so
this
let's-
one.
Well, hold on, let's talk about the foster care one. Because,
So, before we do that,
Okay.
can we- the $4,000 one, the arts, enhanced art and culture within the city,
Mhm.
That had a majority.
that has a
full
majority,
funding.
so we should just highlight that one.
It feels like if we've come to consensus on these two and now this one, let's just put those in and see how much we have left.
Exactly.
And then we can whittle this down.
That's what I wanted to get
Okay.
to.
And we said 4,000 here, since we have consensus there.
Renee?
And it seems everybody
The
wants to
majority
allocate
is what
something
you
to
were saying.
murals.
And the early learning playground, we have there's consensus on that.
Yeah.
yeah, but I don't know if we know about the amount yet, right?
We just go, I mean, it's 3,500 or
Okay.
4,000, it's not,
Okay, all right.
if we need $1,500 to say.
And we agree on 0 for the lift,
Yes,
or for the.
so that's gonna be handled through other.
And I think we're.
Here we have
4 out of
four,
5.
4 out of 5 say, you know.
And I'm okay with going down to 6 on that one.
Okay.
And Keith was just probably splitting his in half
Yeah.
for,
He did 50%.
yeah.
So that gives us $16,000 to work with on three items.
And it looks like there's consensus on the access ramp too.
Well, 3.
The amount is a consensus.
Well, let's put in the minimum then. I'd be willing to go minimum on that. With the potential to go full, I'm just wondering about,
Can you plug that into the 12?
The 44.
yeah,
Okay. I'm gonna highlight it just as a revisit item.
Yeah.
Potentially.
It would just, yeah, go up.
Did we agree 0 for the foster, or actually, there's still a couple committee members that, yeah.
yeah, but so I'm interested in why we're saying no to that one.
I said no because of the small, very small percentage of Sherwood that gets served out of their overall.
Yeah.
They get a lot of funding. I'm sure they're putting in applications everywhere they can.
Okay,
I was a little disappointed they didn't have a minimum or a partial funding number there.
Yeah, they said no on partial funding, so it's the full amount or
Full
nothing.
amount or nothing.
They would take partial.
I'd love to hear
Yeah.
this one.
I
I don't know that much about the
They're
program.
a social service organization in our backyard serving children. And in my opinion, we should be funding some portion of it. That's basically my rationale.
because that's kind of how I lean as well.
That's why I
So,
funded it.
except if you were to tell me, well, we got one kid that is benefit, is there,
It was 12
there 12, okay. I
Out
can't
of-
remember.
300 or 400.
Well, 12, you know, that,
I think $700 a kid is,
I did
Yeah.
the math, it was pretty cheap, it was like $655.
frankly, they've
I'm
already
with
had,
Renee on this
they've
one.
already had a hard enough, you know, I think put me on that one as well.
So it was 12, because I heard 3, so.
It went up from the last time they applied,
7,500.
it went up,
Gotcha.
it was like 12.
All the more reason to fund it.
I'm good with that one.
Yeah,
You good with it?
yeah,
7,500?
yeah.
What we got left? How much money? $5,000?
Well,
Well, let me just plug in 5237 amount. You're making me do math without my thinking.
Well, we don't have consensus on that.
Yeah,
I know, but, okay, so that takes us $500 over, all right.
I can make it work.
But we also have other areas that we wanted to revisit that we
Yeah.
didn't fully fund.
Yeah.
Like, both line 12 as well as, well, we did fund 19, so.
So if we put 12 at the full amount,
Nice.
So if you put 12 at the full amount,
Then we're out of money.
Oh, it's not so
Right.
much.
Then you're out of money.
you're within
Huh.
$11.
So the thing about the ramp at the St. Francis Church is they do have their Knights, or Knights of Columbus, which is their funding arm,
Yeah.
and they have the church.
And frankly, the reason that the school to farm agriculture say, I mean, Archer or Hawksview is a similar story where there are less, yeah, there's more disadvantaged youth and there's opportunity. You know, frankly, I don't know how many of them have gardens at home or agriculture, or different, you know, so it feels like it's in the same ballpark as the foster care stuff, but it, you know, it's getting exposure to.
Oh, yeah, we funded them we funded it for 4 years, yeah.
Yeah, no, I know, but that's why I would like to, I mean, my personal preference would be to drop the access ramp back to where it was and do something at least, you know, the minimum for the school to farm
I actually
agriculture.
have a question on the access ramps, when their budget makes no sense, it says grant funds requested $9,040, but then it says in-kind matching 2283, total cost of project 6757.
So they're only matching their volunteer work, they're not matching with funds, that's why I'm suggesting.
But I wasn't done,
I'm sorry.
the math isn't making
They
sense.
subtracted the math to go the other way.
The math should go on the other way, and I'm wondering if they only need 6757. If 2283 was their in-kind
Yeah.
matching funds. And I went to look at their other page, and it still says labor, 2283.
But then they put 4,400 as the minimum.
Well, that's the cost of the ramp, right here.
So what are they buying with the, above the 44?
We have 200 in supplies, 200 plant review, 1,100 ramp is 400. 4x4 wooden post, ADA signage, labor, and possible cement work at 2,000.
So they're certainly they can get that from some other in-kind source or some local donation or whatever.
And they don't
I
have,
think the math doesn't.
there doesn't.
I'm thinking they only need 6750.
I'm in favor of going to the 4,000 number now, just out of that.
And then maybe they can find a cement.
I do like that project because it's a capital investment that will give benefit for a long time. It's
One time.
as opposed to funding ongoing operations.
You can see that.
Ramps last
What is
year.
this?
Or we could do the 7,500, you know, that appears to be the real cost,
that's part of their old,
or whatever it was, somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,500.
What are you looking at, Taylor?
The Sherwood Foundation for the Arts, buying microphones and supporting equipment and stuff.
Yeah.
That was one of the ones that was from a previous year.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
We funded that in past years.
Okay.
But it wasn't in this year's.
Yeah, it is. Right there, the bottom line. I mean, the
Oh, the Pearl project?
enhanced art and culture, it's line 17.
Oh, we're just
Oh,
not seeing the.
Okay, oh, it's just, yeah, I was,
Columns.
yeah, I was looking at the order.
They're finishing out their money.
Oh, perfect, okay, perfect,
Yeah.
okay.
So what if we did 6,800 on St. Francis, assuming I'm reading their math wrong, but that at least gives them money towards their thing, and then does that give us enough to fund the school to farm?
No, well, close.
No,
I know.
so we have to bring theirs down, I don't know what that is, it keeps coming.
I can float an option out of this committee.
You can float an option, what's your option?
Well, part of this, we charge a small administrative fee as a finance department, just because all the time, we could just cut that down and make this work.
Well, but also
We cut it down by about $3,000, and I think we charge a little less than $5,000, just like that. It's 5%. Some cities charge, you can charge up to 20%, but that's a lot to take away from these nonprofits and these groups, so we charge them more now.
I mean, you've also said though that there's a possibility we might not get the full amount. Secondly, we've talked every year about wanting to start to build up a surplus, so we have the opportunity to do a major project down the road. And thirdly, we don't even have majority consensus who agrees to fund that.
Yeah,
Did we fund CASA last cycle for the cycle year?
CASA was in 21, 22, $5,000.
We could fund them the 5,000 again. I mean, I can't imagine they, even though they didn't give us a minimum, that they would say no. But it just depends which CASA or farm the,
I was just concerned they didn't have a minimum and we gave them a minimum. They said they didn't, you know, it would work more.
Which one's coming?
well, is it zero worse than?
I want to do full funding on CASA.
Okay.
I feel very strongly about that personally.
Yeah, yeah,
I'd go back to 4,400 on the St. Francis, because they don't even have anything that the Knights of Columbus would fund, and that's their funding arm. Personally.
And so we have three folks at 4,400, the mayor at 7,000, and then
I could
two
do,
at full.
I could go to 4. And Renee said she could go to 4, so
I could go to 4,400.
let's do 4.
What's the purpose of going to 4?
Or 44, I mean.
44.
Okay, but to what end?
That purchases the ramp for them, and then they need to find their own labor.
Right, but to what end are we
That gives
freeing
us-
up more money?
Oh, the free
It
farm.
gets us closer to the,
Doesn't that get us closer? Yeah, and then,
So,
we had
so are
two
people who previously don't want to fund this now want to fund this? So the farm to agricultural program? Because we only have 2 votes for it.
yeah.
okay, so help me understand here. And we've talked to them, again, I'm catching up on some of this is their 5th year. We've told them, did we tell them last year, we don't want it to be an ongoing thing or?
I don't know that we've ever told them, but it's been in our conversations
Okay.
like this.
we
we
don't
don't-
want any organization to get dependent on this
I know.
every single year.
Yeah.
And because who knows what we're gonna see down the road.
Yeah.
And
And
so we're
so I like-
always, should be encouraging organizations that this should help you get going, but you
Yeah,
don't find out.
I understand that.
This looks like their 4th request, if this is all up to date, it's the MANA, right?
Yeah.
MANA Foundation.
Yeah,
So they had 14,000 the first year, almost 9,000 the second, and 76 the third.
How many kids are impacted by that?
Fourth and some. It's every student, K through 5.
I would do that one before
6.
CASA.
All just-
Just for us, no reason.
yeah, but I mean, so the only reason I would be looking to cut either one of those though is for the idea that we want to be saving or we want to have a cushion or something like that. If we don't get all this money here, what happens? Is the city on the hook for that?
General funded.
And then we assume we can get it back next year. But if we, we can pay ourselves back.
What we could do is set up an interfund loan.
Yeah.
Yeah, between the general fund and this fund
It's
that,
not what we want to do, though.
yeah.
Yeah, but you know, part of me is saying, you know, the cost of the 13 and 14 are funding, you know, projects for the least fortunate of our community. right? And I don't know. And I mean, if we take, so the seniors are getting a chunk here. We've got children and low-income children that are getting a chunk here. Like, it doesn't feel right to say, hey, let's cut their program for a rainy day fund for a big project down the line.
We're not cutting their program.
So,
No, not cutting their
so
program, you're not
here's what it
funding
comes
it.
out. Right now, we have 2 votes for this and 5 votes against it. So unless Tim, Kim, and Mr. Rosenthal, unless 2 of them want to fund it, we're not funding it.
Okay.
Because I know the mayor will. And he's not here anyway. But that one is done.
Well, let's put a. Maybe, that's right.
So
You 3, you just.
I mean, I do feel bad that it looks like we funded everything except one thing, you know? I mean, and that's what's gonna happen. We don't have an indefinite amount of money. Something doesn't get funded every year.
So,
Right.
so here's my take, just a sec, both of those programs fund kids, I get it, and from a school perspective, both of them are funding people on lower on the economic scale, those are needs. The school to farm project probably won't happen without that money, I'm guessing.
Correct.
CASA is on the hook to provide those services regardless of whether we fund. So the more I think about this, I would rather fund, since, you know, they've stated that this is a reset year because of COVID, I'd rather fund the school to farm project.
But if the money is in the budget, why would we make a decision between one or the other?
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Right, because Kim, to your point, where we say, hey, it looks like we funded everything except for one thing, we don't have to not fund that one.
Well, we don't have enough to fund it.
We do, if we,
Can you move my money down?
so right now, if we put in,
CASA.
You mean if we cut something else off?
No, no, no.
something?
he said that we could, we were $500 over, and he said he could make it work with
You don't have
cutting
to
their
pay for it.
administrative fee.
Well, that's assuming we get the full
Fund,
59,000.
fund.
Oh, yeah,
But
but,
if we
Oh,
don't,
that,
School to farm.
but if we
We're,
don't.
we're
we'll
in
get-
$500, guys. If you
Yeah.
put the 5,237, it's $500 off.
Yeah, so we
That's
just,
the match.
so and if we don't get the full money though, we're gonna float it till next year, which is 6 months from now, right? I mean, like, it doesn't seem like the risk is that high of doing this, and it feels like it's a small amount to, I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's worth the,
Full amount.
we're funding everybody except for this other program for Archer Plan kids, I mean, the hockey kids.
So David, point of clarification.
Mhm.
If we don't know that we're getting this money, why are we doing this process? I guess I'm confused.
Yeah, it's kind of a little backwards. We award these, the money goes out usually in July, August, and quarterly we get funding through Metro.
based on some assumptions.
It's based on projections and, you know, working with Metro, talking to them, kind of looking at the patterns.
And we've never been short funded yet.
But we did a second round of asks based off of the money that we were.
We did a second round.
Still-
and
it's
got
still
two
based off of
applications.
I understand that, but we had a certain amount of money that we were given at that point in time, right?
No,
Or no, you know, it's
that,
based on assumptions.
Projection.
yeah,
Okay.
based on budgeting, basically.
Maybe that's where I'm at confused. I thought that was a solid amount of money that we received, or we were going to receive. Okay.
No,
Every year it's based on estimates.
so there's always a little bit of risk.
Yeah, I feel
We
like.
still need a
it's-
fourth vote for this one.
From my standpoint, like I said, you guys all know about these, unless somebody says one of these is not a worthwhile organization, it's not doing good to help people or help the community. Unless you have set a guidelines, like 5 years is all we're gonna fund them. I mean, you know, they, as you said, we don't wanna fund them in perpetuity, but I would say we should continue a program that we think has been doing good. My tendency would be to shade a little bit, fund all of the ones that we think are worthwhile, maybe shave a little bit, and then as you came up with an option of, finding a little extra spare change here, just to make it work out, and then if we don't have quite enough, if we come up 58,500, well, hold it off until next week, if we come out with 61,000, well, then we're sitting pretty. Now, unless you have specific criteria why you shouldn't fund somebody, I mean, that would be my tendency, so I would have done what you've done, is I would have allocated the minimum and then debated which ones do we want to continue, and I wouldn't have added the farm to schools, it's their 5th year. They should be sort of being weaned off of the project, but we haven't told them that they're not eligible anymore. I think we should be saying that, or you should be saying that, I should be. But that would be, that's sort of.
You're the co-chair, we're gonna let you do that.
All in favor? So if we pencil, so that's four, if we pencil in the 5237, we're pretty much at a wash.
Yeah, and frankly, I'm also okay in telling them, hey, we love this program, we believe in it. This particular fund can't fund it anymore.
Yeah.
Like when we give it to them, right? And saying,
Or at the very least, go out and find other funding
Yeah.
to supplement it, and we'll, and if we can continue to fund part of it
Yeah.
over a period of time to show that you're also seeking out other revenue sources and or becoming self-funding at some point too.
yeah,
So the other thing to consider is the early learning playground safety, giving them the minimum of 2.
I think we're close enough right here.
I mean, we're at a wash right now.
what,
I
I
agree.
I just think we're close enough.
Could I get someone on line 14? It sounds like I know the mayor, he gave a score of 0. We still only have 3 folks.
Mr. Rosenthal said minimum in the far column.
Well, yeah,
He's at it, so.
Yeah.
No, Rosenthal.
No, Rosenthal.
Oh, Rosenthal,
Well,
sorry.
and if you want my votes now, I would be 44, 75, 52, 6. I mean, I think the schools, the food is more important than a second mural. As much as I love murals, the 19,000 is a given. The 15,000 minimum for art and culture.
1,500?
1,500,
Oh.
yeah. I'd like to give 15,000, but I guess we can't do that. And then 2,000 and 95 odd number.
I remember the point I was gonna bring up, on the, school to farm with between the full amount and the lower amount. If I was gonna do the lower amount, if I was gonna do anything, it would be a lower amount, and the reason being is the signage, which is the difference between the lower amount and the higher amount, is a permanent fixture on a commercial property. It's not the nonprofit's property, it's signage on our cooperative,
Our table.
our table cooperative store, retail. And interpretive signage that,
Really good point.
Yeah,
That is a great point.
yeah, so
so it doesn't affect the school program at all.
no, exactly. I mean, interpretive signing, I guess, is a learning thing for students go out there, because the signs are there that says whatever the signs are gonna say, but it's not, yeah. So, I'm good with this, if David thinks $575 is, can come out of the admin fee. I'd like to see as least as possible come out of, admin, so that we can always fund as many projects, but I also realize it takes admin time to do this, less we spend a lot of time putting this together.
Would it be, so are we all? I'm good with this.
Taylor?
Yeah, I think I am.
Renee? Taylor?
And the allocation of 3593 is, like I said, I would have allocated the minimum and then let you guys decide where to put the extra money, the extra $5,000, because I don't have competency in judging.
Programs in
So
our,
I'm good with that, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Gary, you said, so just kind of expanding on the thought that you mentioned, I think Taylor, you mentioned it too, is we don't have to tonight, but do we as a group need to come up with a more formal funding policy? So we can be proactive with organizations, so they know that for non-capital projects, here's our policy in terms of number of years and expectations. So it's really clear, even from the day that you first ask.
I'm in support of capital projects, and I'm also in support of startup costs, right? If you're starting a new community initiative, great, let's help with that. I'm not in support of ongoing operations.
Yeah.
And the thing with that is, if you look at who we funded the most
I know.
every year,
We
the
can hold
Robin
them too.
Festival for their ongoing operations.
And they did reduce their asks significantly.
They
did.
Based on that feedback.
So Taylor, you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. I also, I would love to add in some, not a requirement, but an encouragement for kind of continuing communication after the funding so that we can.
We have a requirement.
That is there.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
It's kind of like an exit report, yeah, that they're required to do.
Frankly, I'm
I don't think we've been enforcing.
I'm asking for, like, I want,
Yeah, actually.
like, I want something up on our city Instagram page. I want, us invited to the ramp opening. You know what I mean? Like, I want it so that, again, as part of this fund, it is getting the word out there that these are improvements that are being funded by the fund, right? That it's not just, because frankly, if I would have seen a new ramp put in at that building, I would have thought, oh, the Knights of Columbus would pay for this, right? Same thing with, I had no idea. I knew about this farm to table thing before, no idea the city,
Well,
not the city, the
Metro.
Metro, you know what I mean? Like, it feels like
sure we're
there's a
getting
PR.
props for what we're.
I mean, I just say we put a list out of who we funded, but I don't wanna put requirements on these places that they have to invite us to their ribbon cutting for their new or something.
It's not, no, it's not about requirements for it. It's more like, again, if this was in the private sector, I would say, hey, we want to be partners here and we want to spread the word about what this has done for you to help other things in the community, right? And so keep in contact, right? Keep us in the loop. It doesn't have to be a contractual thing, right? It feels like maybe this is part of the role of, whoever's in charge of this
Well,
city.
let's start with this. I mean, I don't disagree with you in concept, but kind of getting back to the policy thing. Well, first of all, can you get Taylor all of the previous, what the current feedback requirements are? And
Yeah,
I think it'd be good for you to review that, but.
okay.
But on this policy, does everyone agree that in general, like capital projects and startup costs? And
Not operations.
and not ongoing operations, and then if I could ask staff to go off and research that, see what other cities are doing and come back with some proposed policies for this group that we can all tweak, review, agree on, and then we can be very proactive.
Yeah, the only caveat I would add, to get a little muddy, is I don't know that I would want a hard line, we will never fund ongoing
Yeah.
operations. I just want there to be a preference, like a strong preference for
Right.
capital projects, one-time startup costs, et cetera. And then if there's money left over, we can fund ongoing operations. But even that, I think there needs to be a recognition and a plan that says, maybe there's a time period, maybe it's 3 years, maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 4, I don't know. Or maybe it's, there's gonna be a decline of the funding over a period of time, or you have to show that you're proactively also getting other funding up and running, so that we're not
The application could have, what's your 3-year plan to?
yeah, something. It doesn't need to be hard and fast. To me, I think we need to encourage people to say, look, you've had 5 years and we're the only funding source, like that's weird.
Something to consider though, with operations is a situation like CASA, a nonprofit that's in our backyard serving a disadvantaged constituent. I think
That's true.
that's something that we still need to consider funding.
That's a good point. It's tricky.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, that's why I don't.
you know it
think
when
we
you
have
see it,
parameters
but
on
it's hard to talk
decisions.
about.
You can have a preference to,
Preference.
have
Yeah.
preference to disclude operations.
Yeah, I don't want to disclude it.
Yeah, I like that word.
You get discouraged, right? We take.
I don't even want to say that. I think it's
Preference,
preference.
a preference to
is a better
those
word.
first two things, capital and startup.
Because there was even a conversation, sorry, Taylor,
No, that's fine, I'm done.
there was also a conversation, and I don't know when it was, at some point, I don't know if it was this group of counselors or prior groups of counselors, where there was a discussion about city-owned or city,
That we weren't gonna do
Projects.
city projects in CEP.
yeah, that was
There
part of, that was a discussion too, so, you know, now I have no issue with it, but I just wanted to remind people that
Because
that's.
we used to put in here the holiday lights, the hanging baskets, the,
Part of this, when it first came out, was beautification to the community.
yeah.
It wasn't all about overheads, it was.
And
It was beautification to the city.
Yep.
We used to put in for certain things, we were told that that wasn't really, wasn't or finance and Kristen's group actually managed it. We gave quarterly updates when we were at the project, so.
I remember
Swap
that.
sent out, there was a check and balance, but insurance was going on for these dollars.
And the city ones now are boards and commissions or friends of, not city departments.
I'm sorry, say that again.
The city requests right now, like the van, it's the,
Friends.
So we're the- oh, yeah. I was just reminding us of that conversation.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
Not that I agreed with it.
Right. Yeah.
Although that's kind of, I question that because the van will be in the city's name and insurance, and so it's really gonna be a city asset.
But the friends are also putting in their own.
Putting in half the money, right, so that,
They're
yeah,
paying 20,000.
yeah.
And we need voice on procedure.
Oh, yeah, I definitely, obviously, everybody fully.
But like the
understands.
library considered.
Close our debt to it.
We're not gonna file the department, of course.
Maybe we all need to review the program itself and then come back. And-
Well, from Metro standpoint, it's community enhancement, but it's really up to you to determine what community enhancement means, and it can be different things at different times.
Yeah.
I mean, if you,
Yeah.
if you, if you got struck by a tornado, community enhancement might be cleanup and painting of all sorts of businesses and buildings. And that would be different that year than it would be, in this case, if you're more worried about equity and more worried about people who have some disadvantages. So it's gonna be to some extent floating, but I think it's a good idea to have at least some standards about, capital improvements and about the length of time that people can expect it to be eligible and stuff like that. I think that's probably a very good thing. And I just want to point out one other thing. We have a bunch of small grants that we give out to solid waste innovators throughout this, the I&I grant program. And one of the things we ask, and we don't enforce it exactly, but we ask, and the thing is, how will Metro be recognized in doing this? And some say, we'll have a booth that says Metro, or some say, well, in all of our materials, it'll say things, some of this grant provided by Metro. We do that in that case. It's not something that's enforced, but it's just something that makes various groups pay attention to the fact that,
On the new, that's like funded by the CEP program.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
not suggesting mandate that.
I mean, just look, it can be on the website, it can be, who knows, there's all sorts of ways, but it's not a hard and fast thing.
So does staff, do you guys have good guidance on coming back with the proposed?
I do, and I kind of want to talk to folks about timing, because normally in November, we are
It's audit season, or audit seasons, it's audit seasons.
Right.
odd season right now until usually end of December, but usually we're putting this out for folks to start applying in the months of December and January, and if we're talking about putting some rules and regulations on this, there's options we have of extending the application period out to a little bit further out so we can get all our rules and regulations done. And it doesn't mean we have to have a decision before even the budget process. It's okay, we're just gonna allocate all this money and I'll put it in contingency, and once we decide on how we're gonna allocate this out, like, for this, I have to go through some budget process. Because right now it's in contingency, it's not an expenditure, so we can stretch out the process a little bit longer this year, just until we can get our rules and
And
kind of to make up the committee and kind of what we expect from these
and
applicants.
just to be clear, you're not talking about allocating these grants, you're talking about the next cycle.
The next cycle,
And when you say stretch out the process, you mean?
meaning normally the folks are used to seeing, they could start applying, I think it's being December. Well, now it might not be till beginning of February, just until we.
Yeah, so we wouldn't open applications until the guidelines, I'd rather call them guidelines.
The guidelines, yeah, instead of rules, more guidelines, because I'd rather have those set before folks start applying and we're like, oh, I'm not eligible, so.
Yeah, and I'm fine with, like Renee, if we decide next year, hey, we want to do a major capital city improvement, like add exercise equipment in in Sunset Park or something. And we decide that's what we're gonna do as a community enhancement, then I say we take a year off and, apply for it. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have to do the way that we just did this one.
I agree, and that's why I think it's so important to get that kind of
Yeah.
messaging out, that this is not a for sure thing
Yeah.
every year.
Yeah, and in fact, it's really easy to deliver that message when you got the check here in this hand and the regulations to say,
Yeah.
hey, and by the way, it's not forever, so.
But I do understand what this committee is wanting from staff. I will, one of the first things I want to do is read that intergovernmental agreement and then reach out to other cities that offer this program, seeing what they have.
So do you want to get back together in early January then?
That's what I was thinking, either, I know December's really tight with the holidays, but yeah, at least minimum by early January, so we can try to set the standards.
Yeah, except that I hate pushing the process out too far because goes from July 1 to June 30th, and like now these groups aren't gonna be, don't have the money until like November. They're cut in half basically, their spending time.
It's more of a budgeting mechanism. This committee could meet in June and I could still make it work with the budgeting process. This has always been done where we like to award before we go into budget. Yeah, I guess the budget committee.
I guess what I'm saying is I want the groups to have the full year to use their funds.
And that's not.
So if we don't do it till June and that's.
Yeah, or if the meetings are, you see this meeting pop up in April again or May, it's just because we want to get these.
So we're compressing the application cycle, not that we're more.
I don't even know if I would compress the application cycle, still give them a couple months, it's just when the committee meets. Usually it's in March or April, we meet,
Yeah.
it might not be till May or June,
But they normally don't get awarded till June anyways,
till July.
till July. So,
Yeah.
okay.
It would seem at this point in the meeting, we need perhaps two motions. One motion is whether or not to approve this allocation of funds
Yeah.
from this cycle, because that's something we have to do. It seems like we're pretty much all in agreement, and so if somebody wants to make the motion, then we might need a second motion on, shall we say, extending the process a little bit into next year so that guidance can be developed for next year and future years. It sounds like those are two particular actions that we're talking about.
I don't think we need a motion on that second one, we just need to give direction to David.
Okay, you don't need a motion.
But I will give a motion on that we, I move that we accept the proposed amounts that we have in column F.
Second.
And I will work on.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Sorry about that. That's okay. And I'll work on getting something on the agenda forecast for early January. Let's get back together.
Awesome. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
Oh, Mr. Rosenthal.
Thank you,
it's
folks.
Nice spending other people's money.
I'm glad that you got solid waste can provide you money to enhance the community, although it needs very little enhancement.
Well, the only thing I would enhance is the name, the Solid Waste Enhancement Program. It feels like we could use a marketing guy in there.
I'll make that suggestion.
Anytime.
Solid Waste Community.
It should be.
One minute.